Alright, so today is day 4, which is kind of exciting because I've been doing this for 4 days now. And it's kind of funny because I'm looking at people as they're viewing it. And it can be really easy to stress about what does it mean and what is going to become of it. And I think about the future of like what this can all mean in the future, and I get way ahead of myself. And then I also look back to the past and I look at past things that I have done. And I'm very creative and I love to create, I love to explore, I love to try new things. And so I do have a tendency to get really into things and get very excited about things, but then to let it fizzle out. And I have been known to be the kind of person to start something and not finish it. So there is this almost this fear or the stress and anxiety and worry that's been kind of coming into this project. And I was like, that is what I'm going to talk about. So if I could go back and give myself the 4th piece of advice to my childhood self would be, it will all work out. And I think what I mean by that is I think it's really easy to live in the future of what will happen. How can I predict what's coming? I need to anticipate, I need to plan, I need to blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, of course you need to plan, you need to save money, which a whole nother episode. Anyway, we're gonna do that one at some point, probably at the end. But yeah, so it's easy to think about those things and get really bogged down in the details of what that's gonna look like. And of course you need to think about it, but being stressed about it and worrying about it and being anxious over it doesn't actually change the event. It's still gonna happen exactly how it's gonna happen. And you can't control that, the outside thing that is happening to you. But what you can control is how you respond. And this can also be the same for the past. So if I've looked back and been like, oh yeah, so in the past I've only ever done this and this, and I've not followed through, and I've not become anything or done anything like this before, and people haven't seen me like this before. And so I can stress over the past, and that doesn't change anything. And I might try to look back and have that reflect on my current situation, be like, oh, is that going to be how this is going to work out? I guess it's the brain's way of trying to understand and grasp the current situation so that it can know what to expect. And I think if we spend our entire lives being so bogged down in the past and who we were, we never really will fully be embodying what we are and growing into what we could become. And if we then on the other side live too far in the future of what we could become and what could happen, we are neglecting the now of what is presently happening to us. And so why is that really important? Well, for me personally, I get really anxious and worried and really stressed. Like, stress is my go-to drug. I think a lot of people these days talk about addiction in terms of alcohol or food or whatever, drugs. There's so much out there. You just pick your poison. But I think people and screen media, there is so many different ways to be addicted in this world. And I think my personal true addiction is stress. And it's just something that my body goes through. And it's almost like this vicious cycle where if I am stressed, I get this feeling in my body. I get this like heart racing and this kind of like knot in this part of my belly. I couldn't explain, like I guess my solar plexus. And I just feel really tight here, and it just like contracts and it like pulls in, and it just feels really heavy and tight. And what I noticed, the more I started to get in tune with that feeling, is that this feeling can sometimes come without a reason. And so actually in the past where I've been stressed was actually just a feeling in my body that I associate with stress. And so sometimes if I'm in a situation and it's new or it's different to what I've done in the past or what I'm something that I'm anticipating, I get this feeling in my body, and it can be really easy to just feed into it, to let the feeling feed the thought, to let the thought feed the feeling, and it just becomes this vicious cycle of feeling that tightness, which feeds the anxiety, which feeds the stress, which then goes into more stressful thoughts, which feeds the feeling. And so the challenge for me is realizing that. So coming out of it, being like, oh, okay, this is something I'm feeling, this is something I'm experiencing, and being able to change that state. And so when I talk about it's all going to work out, that would be, so my advice is it will all work out. And the reason for that is because, yeah, like no matter what you do, if you stress or worry or get anxious about something and try to anticipate all the outcomes, it doesn't change the outcome. It just keeps you in your head, and it can actually cut you off from the experience of where you are right now in terms of like, okay, so just say my current state. We brought it up before. I brought it up before. There's no one else here, Claire. I brought it up before about money. This is something that I really need to get a handle on. But I basically had just gotten a second job, and I'd been quite tight on my budget recently. And this brings about this feeling in my body, which feeds the thought of, I can't manage my money, and I'm in the past, haven't done this, and then I go to the future of, oh, I'm never going to be able to save money, I'm never going to have this, I'm never going to have that, how am I going to ever have a family if I can't even feed myself properly? And all these things feed back into body, and then I get this bodily feeling, and it's just this big loop. And so then that can cut me off from where I am right now. And if I'm feeling all those feelings, that's going to change how I interact in my day. And so if I'm in a negative space in my body, for example, if I went out to try and get another job, I may not come across as someone that someone would want to employ, because they're just getting negative vibes from me. They're like, she seems really stressed. And you just kind of see those people and you're like, you're really stressed, and almost like you don't want to be around them. And so that could cut me off from that opportunity. Or, if you're in your own headspace and thinking about all this negative stuff and being stressed about the future and stressed about the past and worrying, dwelling on the past, that's the word, you will be not aware of what's happening around you. And I think there is something so important in paying attention to what is around you, because that is where you are. And that is like the truth of the matter is here and today and in the present. And so, anyway, so this money example. So I went to book this flight last night because I'm going to do this little mini trip. I'm very excited. Anyway, so of course, because I was tight for money, I was like, okay, I've secured this job. I'm going to work this shift on the weekend. So that means that I'm going to have this extra cash to pay for this flight. Anyway, long story short, I basically made a bit of a mistake in the booking, and I booked it with a dodgy site. My bad. But I booked it, and then I was like, oh, this is dodgy. I've got to cancel. And I canceled, and it was like, your refund, if any, will be refunded in 14 days. And I went into full body freak out because of this story, and this headspace of money was scary and that I didn't have enough of it. And so I was like, oh, how's it going to work out? Like, I tried to anticipate where it's going to end and how I'm going to pay this bill and that bill. And I've kind of gone into the spin. Anyway, so basically when I get into those states, if I am allowing myself to get caught up in that narrative and caught up in that state, it just takes me away from the ability to problem solve that event. So last night I actually called someone to help me through it because I just really was quite intensely emotional about it. But that is one of the things that I know to do because of experience. I know that sometimes I can manage it myself, but sometimes it does get to a level and I just need to talk to someone about it. But basically, when something intense happens to you like that, it's feeling the feeling, but then also there's something about letting it pass through, acknowledging like, yes, I am feeling a feeling in my body, I'm having these thoughts of I'm stressed, I'm worried that this isn't going to work out, or this might not happen, but realizing that worrying isn't going to solve it. It's not going to change it. Stressing will only have negative impacts on your body. There's so much research out there about the damaging effect that the stress hormone cortisol has on our system. And I think it is a huge reason, not personally, but based on the research I've seen, personally, the research is saying that this stress hormone, cortisol, and everything else that goes along with it is probably quite responsible for a significant amount of disease in modern day society. And we have certain categories of disease that have increased, and I think a lot of that comes down to the lifestyles we're leading, and often we lead quite very stressful lives in terms of we try to anticipate and look forward, and then also dwelling on the past, and we're not resolving those things, and we're living in these past and future places. When if I'm looking right now, for example, in the money situation, it's like, okay, I'm anticipating not having money for my bills in 2 weeks, and it's like, am I 2 weeks away? It's like, no, I'm here right now. If I'm getting stressed and I spend the next 2 weeks stressing that I'm not going to be able to pay that bill, I'm going to be in this headspace of stress. But if I'm able to go, okay, stress, feel it in my body, and then move through it, I then am able to open up another space to be like, okay, calm, I can't change it with this feeling. This emotion isn't going to change that event in the future. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And maybe I'm going to have to deal with it when it comes along. But the reality is I can't change it. But what I can change is how I'm feeling right now. And me, I think I also have this thing where I'm like, oh, I can't feel good about something that, okay, for example, with this money situation, like I bought this flight because I thought I had this extra money and now it's not in my account and I'm not going to pay this thing because I'm going to have to book another flight. And anyway, so I'm thinking about all these things and how it might not work out, and it's like, that cuts me off from what I like to problem solve. And I got distracted. Yeah, it's talking about like other people in terms of, okay, if I'm coming up short for rent, that's putting someone else out. That's me having to ask for a 2-day extension or whatever that situation, like not that that's going to happen, but if that was the situation, that is me, I feel negatively toward letting someone else down in that way, or having, like, more likely the situation will be asking to borrow money to pay this other person. And this sense of guilt comes in. And when you have this sense of guilt, when I have this sense of guilt, it's really hard to break past that in terms of feeling good about the situation. It's like, I'm not bothered. It almost feels like you don't care, and it feels almost rude. Like, I'm not worried about it. And so I would keep myself in this stress because it's like, oh, if I'm stressing, they'll know that I care. It's like, I'm staying stressed because about not having money, because then they know that I'm working really hard. And that's another thing I think a lot of people do is, if you're working really hard, you're really stressed. And so if you're really stressed, it shows that you're working really hard. And working hard in this society, in this day and age, is utmost. It's like top of the tier. Like, if you're stressed, you must be working hard. Good job you for being stressed. And I think really, if I could go back, and it's just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth your health. It is not worth the time that you waste being upset, because it usually works out anyway. Anything in my past where something has happened like that, where something has gone hugely wrong, it's always worked out. It's never been, yeah, sometimes like I've had times where I was eating quinoa, that I was working in a store and I would every day at the end of the day take home the thing of quinoa, and I would just eat plain quinoa for weeks on end because I couldn't afford to buy my groceries. That's happened. Did I survive? Yes. Did I lose a little bit of weight in those couple of weeks? Yes. Did I put it back on in the future? Yes. It wasn't a drama. Like, it was fine. I had a roof over my head. I had food in my belly. I had the things. I had love and support, and just like, obviously it's hard to say from my situation. It's very different to someone else's situation, but ooh, my tummy knows that I talked about hungry. I haven't eaten it. It's yelling at me. Yeah, so anyway, if I was to give, so something that I do personally, okay, so talking about what would I say in terms of advice or tactics that I use, personally, just as I was talking about, it's like feeding into a state. And so I just really try to focus on doing something to get me out of that state, to get me into a new state, to a new feeling in my body. And so today I was feeling a bit off at work. And so I actually, I went to the cemetery, which is like opposite where I work. And I don't know if this is disrespectful to the dead, but anyway, there's like a grassy bit in the middle of it. So I went around to the middle, and there's this big, beautiful tree, and I just sat there and I had a jam out to my music, and I actually had a dance in the middle of this graveyard in the middle of the day. It's probably one of the top 5 weirdest things I've ever done. But after the thing about other people's opinions yesterday, I was just in this headspace of like, whatever, I don't need to care about these other people's opinions. And so I just was like, is this gonna make me feel good in my body? Is this gonna help me move past this feeling that I'm feeling? And I was like, hell yeah, it will. Always, Queen, don't stop me now. Makes me feel good. Am I right? I'm right. So the moving it through your body. And then it's just realizing that it's going to come through, that it's going to work out. And in terms of kids, what we can gift to them in terms of stressing and anxiety, I think a lot of kids actually really do. They see stress and they see anxiety like around them, and they feel that. I think that they pick up on things. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And they really take it on. And so I think the best thing that you can really do for a kid is to model this, is to model what it looks like to take on an emotion and to not let it rule you. And I guess what I personally do with kids, I've had quite a few kids that are very emotionally charged in my past, in my experience with kids, and how I challenge them is I come into their space when they are in this big emotion, and I bring them down, and I just kind of like, you look at the current situation, and then you make it bigger, and like, you can make this light, you can make it funny, and again, changing their state. So I think people just do this unconsciously, but you know, a kid's fallen over, they've scratched their knee, and they're like, you know, the ones they do, or you know, adults do that too. Definitely don't. And anyway, so like, yeah, it's hurting, and you go, oh, you just chop off your leg, like, should we just cut it off? Like, oh, is it that bad? Is it like, let's do it, we'll just right here. Some kids get really upset by that, I've discovered, but most kids will go, no, and they'll, you know, it brings a bigger perspective of like, okay, you've scratched your knee, but you have your leg. it's still attached. And just bringing an awareness and lightness to things, like looking at a bigger picture, I think always helps me as well. Not even just a kid, just for example, if I'm looking at the way someone's treating me in a very particular situation, if I take time to like remove myself from that situation and take time to be like, okay, this particular context, make that bigger. Okay, so my money for my flight is okay, I may have to owe someone money for this month, but then okay, I've just got a new job, so then if I work at that a few extra days, bam, in 2 months I've already paid that person back, and then in 3 months I'm gonna start to have some savings, and then in 4 months I am going to do another trip and not spend all my money. Hopefully. So just bringing it to a bigger picture, or just even looking at a grander scheme of life in general, really can help you put perspective, well, helps me put perspective on what's going on in my life. So anyway, I think that it's gonna work out no matter what. So just feel the feels and just enjoy now. It's just like, don't let worrying about the past or stressing over the future stop you from living your now, basically. I probably could have just saved you 20 minutes and just said that. Anyway, I don't think I have anything else to say. I think that I am going to go and make some yummy food and go book another flight, because I know that it's all going to work out in the end. And I will see you tomorrow for day 5. I just like, that's so cool, like day 5. It's just crazy, because I've got my little list of things that I've decided to talk about, and I'm just looking at them, and it's like, 30 is just gonna come so quickly. Yeah, and that's another thing too. It's like, if I was to look at this list and stress about what I'm going to talk about on day 8 or 9 or 10, I wouldn't be present enough to think about what to talk about for this one, which potentially I did a little bit because I have my book. Who knows? Maybe I shouldn't have my book next time. Okay, I'm gonna go. But it has been a pleasure, and because I'm seeming to do quotes all the time. What is the time? It'll all work out. It'll all work out. I don't think I have a quote for you right now. Yeah, so be happy. It's not a quote, but you should do it, because